Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful uh, day in the Lord here. Um, Yesterday, I did the video on in the order of Melchizedek, and you know, you would think I'm stuck on something here. The Lord just keeps repeating something over and over to me, even though I'm looking for different things in the Bible. One theme keeps popping up, and I don't know what to make of that. So yesterday I went digging for some references to Melchizedek, and because Jesus was said to be of the order of Melchizedek in Psalm 110, I guess it is, and Hebrews 7. But in there, I found, again, the Rephaim reference just before those verses, sort of reinforcing the prior videos I did on Mount Seir. So, um, on a completely different topic, I was just thinking about the coming tribulation period, and one of the more, I mean, it's global, okay, and and probably, who knows, maybe a majority of the population on Earth, probably, since God seems to deal in remnants, it's probably a vast majority of the people on Earth will be wiped out. But the one thing that was sticking in my brain was um, the the Zechariah verses about 2/3 shall be cut off, and again, it's the end days reference, and I knew it was somewhere between Zechariah 12 and 14, and it happens to be in Zechariah 13. And then I started to think, well, where is that in the tribulation period specifically that happens? And um, you know, like you always should do with the Bible, don't go into just single verses, but read things in context. And so I thought, well, the good context of this would be start in chapter 12, go all the way through the end of chapter 14 in Zechariah, and then back up and figure out, where are we in the tribulation period for that reference. And I didn't even get to the answer or didn't get comfortable with an answer on that question. And I got to the end of Zechariah 14 and I ran into the very last verse. Um, and it's, Zechariah 14 transitions into the millennial reign and sort of picks up that theme. And when you get down to Zechariah 14, it says, Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seethe therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. And so it sure appears that in this reference, at some point there was Canaanites in the temple. That's, kind of what I'm getting out of this. And um, wish I was more of a, you know, Jewish uh, backgrounded person. But in just thinking this through rationally, I can't imagine that the Canaanites were ever um, admitted into the temple of God during the first or second temple. I mean, I know there was periods of apostate, Judaism, but the ministry in the temple was, uh, other than that period, I guess, of Antiochus Epiphanes, was watched over by the Levitical priesthood, and also I was trying to think about what's this Canaanite in the house of the Lord, and it's millennial reign looking back as if it happened, and so maybe it was that reference to um, Antiochus Epiphanes, but he wasn't really a Canaanite. I mean, he was a Greek king, and so I think we're really talking back on this theme that I've been on here with the Mount Seir and with the Nephilim and the Rephaim that were in the land, you know, Esau's descendants conquering them in Deuteronomy 2 when they took over the land of Edom, and then Joshua coming into the promised land, conquering the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amalekites and the Amorites and whatever. And for people who have done that study, you know that at least the kings and leaders in the land, in the promised land before Joshua took the Jewish people into the land, they were this Nephilim, and you know they were told by God to destroy everybody in these towns that they came into, and so that's again pretty strong evidence that it was genetic manipulation, or at least you know these Nephilim or Rephaim had been interbreeding into the local populations, and so the Jewish people weren't to take any wives from those people. They weren't supposed to take any of the religious practices or the idol worship, and we drilled into that a lot in the prior. And so this leads me to believe then that there's coming a time in the Third Temple period when the Canaanites are going to be in the house of the Lord of hosts. And I bring this up because I think it falls in theme. I mean, if the Great Deception, and again, there's plenty of debate on what that is, but if it is a return of, you know, my perspective, Nimrod, or the genetic version of Nimrod in the um, population that comes, and if the Roman Catholic Church is preparing to baptize our space brothers, and if those things tie together, and again, if that's all new to you, go look up Tom Horn and Chris Putnam. They get into this in a big way in their book Exo Vaticana. But as are others, Rob Skiba and Dr. Chuck Missler and you know Doug Hamp and blah blah blah. There's so many people now. L.A. Marzulli, another one. He's found the skulls for these Rephaim or Nephilim, and has done documentaries now. So there's physical evidence of all this coming. So here, what I'm looking at is the Canaanites going to be a house of the Lord of hosts. It might be one more indication now that you know the Antichrist, whoever this is, because we know he enters into the temple and declares himself to be God. If you ask me, that may be the Canaanite coming into the Lord of hosts, the house of the Lord of hosts. I don't know, struck me again, and seriously, I've not gone out to go find these in the Bible. I've gone after different topics in every case, and have sort of been brought to this one topic. And so I apologize to those that would much rather hear something about the gospel message or Acts, which I've done. And, you know, I went to go talk about Jesus in the order of Melchizedek, and I ran into it and whatever. So personally, I wasn't wired to keep harping on this, but it just, every time I go in to study something, this time I went in to look at what point during the day of the Lord, you know, according to Zechariah, do the Jewish people are going to have this horrendous 2 times worse than what happened under Hitler, and it's documented in the Bible. I went in looking for that and trying to understand that, and I run into this just trying to get context for those verses. So leave you with that, a short video here. Again, I'm not scrubbing through the Bible trying to find these verses. It just stands out, I guess, when I'm doing some of this study. So I guess I'll leave you there. Have a great Sunday, and may God bless.